Hi everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be making muffins. Not just any muffins, we're making sourdough banana chocolate chip muffins. This recipe comes courtesy of Bake From Scratch blog. They're fantastic. I'm going to put the link down in the comments, so go check it out. They're great. This recipe is so wonderful because you always have sourdough discard, and if you're like me, you never get through all your bananas. We talked about this before with a pie. So, here's another use for both sourdough discard and old bananas. Let's get going. So the first thing we want to do is preheat our oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. I've already got that turned on and going. And line a 12-cup muffin pan with parchment or paper liners. Here are mine. Half of these are Christmas and half of these are cute little Halloween. Because if you're like me, you never, ever use the exact number that you have, so you just have these random bits left over. You'll notice little dots down in the bottom of these. That's because I put a teensy bit of butter into the bottom of the pan, because paper liners, especially older paper liners, like if they were, hanging around from Christmas, don't like to sit in the cups. They pop out. So, put that little dab of butter. It's not going to mess with anything. You're not putting just a little smear. Nothing more than that. But it makes your liner stay down, so when you try to fill it, it goes in there rather than all over and make a mess. So there's those set aside to wait. Now, in our large bowl, we're going to stir together 1 1/4 cups or 156 grams of all-purpose flour. And I always go by weight. I don't trust cups. I always worry that I might have got a bubble inside or something didn't set right. So I go by weight. So 156 grams all-purpose flour. Then 2 different sugars. And actually I've got 3 different sugars because I've got brown sugar, and the recipe calls for light brown sugar. I had just the dregs of some old dark brown sugar, so I mixed that in here. I also like dark brown sugar. It has more of a caramel flavor. But of your brown sugar, 110 grams of that goes in, which equates to a 1/2 cup. Then we've got white sugar, just plain sugar. And this is a 1/3 cup or 67 grams of just granulated sugar. Adds into there. We've got baking powder and baking soda. So in your baking powder, this is 5 grams or 1 teaspoon. Oh, sorry. That's for the baking soda. 5 grams or 1 teaspoon baking soda. In that goes. And 2 teaspoons or 10 grams baking powder. In that goes. And then we've got just a little bit of salt. So this is just a 1/2 teaspoon, 1.5 grams. When it comes to things just this small, that I'm fine using measuring spoons for. Getting to a 1/2 gram is really hard on most scales. So, we've got all of this, and we're just going to mix those together. And if you have clumps of brown sugar, just bust those up with your hand. And you don't need to get it perfect. It's kind of a nice surprise every once in a while to get little clumps. You just don't want big ones. So get that kind of mixed in together. And it is going to have liquid go in there, so it's going to bust up even more. Next, we're going to do our banana and our sourdough discard. So, for me, banana pours out earlier in discard, easier than discard. So, here's my discard. This is 1 cup of sourdough discard. This recipe actually calls this 275 grams is a cup. A lot of recipes you'll see 225 grams as your cup. And you know what? They're both right. And they both work just fine. Especially when you're adding sourdough discard. the same as when you're adding things like, say, vanilla flavoring or chocolate chips. You're fine going over. I mean, not excessively, but a bit over. Just don't go under. So we're going to add in our banana to our sourdough discard. And oil. We've got 70 grams or 5 tablespoons of oil. Get all that mixed in. And it wants you to do all of the banana actually separate. I don't see any reason to go through that many other bowls. To do your discard and oil in one and the banana and everything else in another. It's all going together as soon as you get them mixed. So I just do it all in one bowl. Next, we're going to add sour cream. This is a half cup or 120 grams of sour cream, and you want this to be cold. I mean, don't worry about like putting it in the freezer or anything, just out of the fridge, cold. And we're going to mix in our sour cream until you can't really see it anymore. Now we've got a lightly beaten egg, one large egg, lightly beaten. Lightly beaten just means you can't really tell the difference between the white and the yolk anymore. You don't want it frothy or changing colors or anything like that. Just kind of all the same color. And I'm just stirring these together. We're going to end up beating, but just to start with, I like stirring because then I have the spatula there to scrape out bowls. And lastly, in this bowl, 1 teaspoon or 4 grams of vanilla extract. Like I said earlier, you can go over on this measure, don't go under. I almost always go at least a gram or 2 over on my flavorings. I like it that way. So now, we're going to do some whisking. Just get the batter off there. And this is where you want to get the bigger chunks out. This is not going to go smooth. You've got banana in there. It never goes smooth. But just give this a good whisk. And that's all that needs. So now we're going to add our liquid to our dry. So we've got our flour mixture here. And we're going to add in the wet. And just gloop that all in. This is where your handy dandy spatula comes in handy again. So you can just scrape your bowl out. And this we're just going to fold to combine. You're not beating this up. You're just getting it mixed together, which is why I'm not pulling the whisk back out. I'm just using my spatula, kind of scrape down the sides and cut through the middle to try to get everything folded in together. And give it a bit of a stir. And where you can see pockets of dry after you stir, you can just cut that in. There. That's fairly well mixed. You can see it's fairly airy, which is one of the reasons you fold. You don't want to knock all that air out because it's just going to give you a nicer texture on your muffins. Last thing to add, we've got a cup of chocolate morsels, chocolate chips. You can do other flavors if you want to. This time I'm just going for the standard because it's nice and easy. Could be fun if you got peanut butter chips to add that in, maybe even half peanut butter, half chocolate. Got a peanut butter chocolate chip banana thing going. Could be fun. And that, once again, just give it a good mix. You might see more dry getting stirred up now that you've got the chips in there. They kind of help with that some, which is nice. But you don't want to blend this. You don't want to mix it too much. So that's good for that. Now we get our muffin tin, and we're going to fill these 2/3 to 3/4 full. And I actually have a scoop for this. Ha-ha! Look at this scoop. This is too big. So we're going to get our handy dandy scoop, and we're just going to take a portion out of here. Get a little jiggle so you don't drip everywhere along the way. And scoop in your muffin tin. And if you have more than a dozen, that's just fine. Don't overfill your muffin tins. Don't say, oh, well, I can just balance this out between all my other muffins and that'll be okay. No, it won't. Odds are it's going to overflow. So just do your normal measures, and if it's too full, if you have another muffin tin, fill that. If you don't, just let your batter sit and wait. And when your first batch is out, set up another batch. It might not be another full dozen, but it'll be enough. And then you don't have overflowing muffins that get every which way. So once we've got these filled, we're going to pop them into the oven. Remember that was set to 375. And you're going to bake them until they're only lightly browned. And you can use the toothpick trick where you stick a toothpick down in the middle, and if it comes out clean, it's done. Not as reliable on banana muffins, or really any muffin that has fruit in it. Just because, well, it has fruit in it, that's always going to be wet. So you might just eyeball for color, especially once if you know how your oven works and how well it bakes, you'll get the timing on these down pretty well. And then, so that's going to bake for usually, most ovens, 20 to 25 minutes. And then when it comes out, leave them in the pan to cool for about 10 to 15 minutes. You don't want to take these out right away. Like I said, they're going to be gooey. They're still going to be soft, sort of. If you try to take them out right away, you'll think, these aren't done. Yeah, they are. They just need to set. So, there's my muffins, and you can see there's a ton more batter. So, I'm going to set up another tray of these and then pop them in the oven, and we'll have a look when they are cooled. Okay, they're out, they're cooled, and as you can see, they are gorgeous. Now, this recipe was set to make 12 muffins. As you can see, it made double. It made exactly double. Don't count, a couple might have disappeared. Wouldn't know how that happened. So what that made me do, I had to drop the time that these baked from the 20 to 25 minutes it would have taken if there were 12 to 15 minutes. And you can see these are nicely browned and got really good inside, nice and fluffy and gorgeous. So that was 15 minutes for 2 dozen. So it depends on the size of your muffin tin. If the batch that you make makes 12, do it for 20 to 25 minutes. If the batch you make makes 24, do 15 minutes. You should have a wonderful bake. And these are delicious. They're gooey. The chocolate's all nice and still moist, and you can see it, how moist it is in there. This is a great recipe. And I'm sure you can modify with whatever chips you want. You could add nuts. You can do all sorts of things. So, enjoy this, play with it, and just have fun using up your discard stuff because, hey, it's tasty. See you next time.